Well, welcome to another episode of Two Old Geeks Talking. Now on the World Wide Web.
Hey, welcome back to Two Old Geeks Talking. I'm Rob.
And I am Trace.
Today we are discussing the Comic Book Code Authority.
Yes, that is a piece of history.
Yes, and do you know why we're talking about it?
Because you pick a topic on occasion and you told me that you wanted to talk about the Comic Book Code Authority.
Okay, the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because in one of our past episodes, might even been our last Two Old Geeks episode, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was sitting here thinking, that hasn't been a thing for almost 20 odd years.
I know.
And a lot of our viewers might not even know what the hell we were even talking about.
A lot of the younger ones, right.
So, and it played a hell of a major role in comic books.
Well, it was not only a part of comic book history, it was part of American history because it was almost forced censorship by the government.
It was forced self-censorship.
Right. They like to do that. I know when they. Well, you want to tell about about it a little bit, and
so let's talk about the.
First of all, what is it?
What is it? So the Comic Book Code Authority was created because in 1948, it was created in 1954, but in 1948 there was a psychiatrist. And his name, let's see, it's down on my list. It was created in 1954, and it was ran by the Comic Book Association of America, is the company who ran it, which was actually all the, what do you call them, producer, directors, the publishers of the comic book companies had got together and created this code to prevent the government from having its own rules against the comic book companies.
They were trying to police themselves.
They were trying to police themselves.
And what led up to that was, like we'd mentioned in the last Two Old Geeks Talking, is you had in the 40s these big comic book burnings, where everybody was blaming the delinquency of their children on this evil influence called comics. Be careful shaking that.
Oh, sorry.
So they would build these big bonfires, and they were throwing all their comics in there, and no comic was safe.
But do you know how that got started?
No.
So there was a psychiatrist. Now we'll get to the psychiatrist.
Okay.
His name was Dr. Frederick Wertham.
Yeah.
Or if I'm pronouncing this correctly. First, he came out with an article in a magazine, very popular. I don't remember the name of the magazine, but it was really popular back in its day. And it talked about how comic books led to homosexuality and was responsible for juvenile delinquency. And then he came out with a book,
Seduction of the
Innocent.
Yeah.
And it caused a spark. Now, yes, was juvenile delinquency on the rise back then? Hell yes.
Well, I mean, there's always an aspect of that in every generation.
Okay, so since then, it has declined, and it wasn't because they came up with the comic book code. It's because the reason it spiked, and I don't know why nobody's seen this. The Senate didn't see it. Nobody in their right mind seen it. People call us boomers, but we are not the original boomers.
We're actually Generation X.
Right, we're Generation X.
Yeah.
The original baby boomers
was our parents.
And they were coming to the age of 10 and 11 in 1954, and they were the buyers of comic books. And the population of children had increased, so did delinquency. So did the sales of comic books. So did the amount of women in the workforce. So they tried to make comic books solely.
Yeah.
They say, comic books aren't solely, but no, this scientist or this psychiatrist was like, oh no, it all spins down to there.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are unique. Well, we're not unique, but from the aspect of like we had read some comics before the code because of our age. We read comics during the code, and now that the code's been abandoned,
Right.
we still read comics. And so, like, the first comics we got was when Dad's friend Steve gave us a stack of comics.
Yeah.
Because our father had read comics when he was a kid, but he didn't have any from when he was a kid, and he didn't read them as an adult. And so, one of the comics that he gave us, and I can't remember if it was Tales from the Crypt. You know, there was some Daredevil in there, some Metal Men in the first comics he gave us. I think there was one, Tales of the Crypt, that went back to the 50s. And it might have been called Weird Mysteries of Science or something like that. But it was one of those old pre-code comics.
Okay.
And I mean, and those comics were interesting. And I mean, like, I can remember one story, and I've tried to find this comic, Rob, and I've looked for this comic, but there was a comic in there. I mean, you got to realize I'm probably about my granddaughter Skylar's age. I'm probably about 6 or 7.
Okay.
So I get this pre-code comic. So there's a story in there of a guy who's depressed and he goes to commit suicide. So he puts a gun to his head and he pulls the trigger.
Right.
And it clicks. It doesn't go off. And so he feels like that's a sign from God, you know, that he needs to stay around. So he's celebrating, and he goes out to a bar, and he's telling some random guy at the bar what happened. And all of a sudden, everybody just starts taking these demonic, hellacious faces, and the guy looks at him and is like, "Oh yeah, that gun went off. And you're in hell now." And so, you know, here I am, like 6 or 7 years old, reading that, and I'm just like, wow, that's awesome. And so I mean, I read that over and over again, and I would love to have that comic and add it back to my collection. But, you know, I can't remember, you know, we destroyed those comics because we were kids. I can't remember what issue it is. But, you know, that was a pre-code comic. They would put that in there now.
So, I mean, one of the biggest comic book burnings you were talking about was in New York. And, I mean, it was crazy the amount of comic books they were burning. This Dr. Frederick, he was saying, so they had the hearing. It was televised, and this was in 1954. They waited until 1954 to televise it. And he said in it that, I hate to say that, Senator, but I think that Hitler was the beginner compared to the comic book industry, who gets to our children much quicker. Now, the senator had asked him, now, do you think, you know, you keep comparing these people to Hitler?
Yeah,
Hitler,
they still compare people to Hitler today.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And he said, I hate to say that, but basically, yeah, they're worse than Hitler is what he said.
Yeah.
And some of the things that he had said in the magazine article, and I'll put them up in case y'all want to pause and read it, was just as horrific and just as terrible. Like, you know, comic books teach women to come outside their place in the society and things like that.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Well, you know, there's nothing, you know, first of all, you can have a medium like comic books,
Right,
and have them for children, and then have some for adults. You know, there are some movies that are appropriate for children, and some movies that are only appropriate toward adults. But to just have a blanket, okay, no, you know, to sell your comic, you need to have this stamp on it.
Well, comic books at that time, what was the bestseller? So there was baby boomers, and comic books were so between 1940 and 1950, they were selling 1.3 billion comic books a year.
Yeah,
issues.
People read back in the day.
You're right.
Yeah,
I mean, today they only sell about 8 million, which is close, but not 8 billion.
Yeah, no.
And it has steadily declined. But they had got away from, like, the superheroes, Superman, Batman.
It's crime stuff.
And it was
horror.
Horror.
Yeah.
And
you got one big beard hair. It's driving me crazy.
you just take it out. Y'all should say that. So,
but yeah, I mean, that's what was selling, crime and horror comics.
right. And so Senator Robert Hendrickson called it the fifth horseman of doom, and also called the comic book companies the comic book menace.
Yeah.
So when they had this Senate hearing, they spoke mostly to this one gentleman. Let's see if I can find his name because I pushed it around. William Gaines. He was the head of EC Comics. Now, EC Comics is not a thing anymore, but
Yeah, the
are
reason.
they?
No, because the Comic Code actually put them out of
Right.
business.
So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he was also the producer of Mad Magazine, which is still a thing.
yeah.
So this idiot, who is supposed to be the spokesperson and champion for the comic book companies,
Yeah.
went in there stoned. He was hyped up on speed because he figured if he could go in there and just barrel over top of him.
Yeah.
Well, at first, man, he was standing his own.
He was trying to get some chemical bravery.
Dude, but it backfired because, you're talking to a bunch of judges, lawyers, people that's well educated.
Yeah.
And they know how to, they don't say interrogate, but they know how to question somebody to get the answers or to get them to screw up. And he started stammering. And they were showing pictures of comic books with men holding women's heads and a bloody axe in the other hand.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You don't think this is bad?" And he's like, "Well, no, you can't see the bottom of her neck. And if you move the body a little more, you'd be able to see more. So no, I don't think that's too bad." And I mean, he was just like losing it.
Right.
And so, I mean, it looked so bad on the comic book company. So the other comic book producers or
Publishers. Yeah.
they decided to do this comic book code, and they left Gaines out of it. They said, "You have nothing to do with this. You have no part of it." He's like, "Fine, I don't want to be a part of it anyway."
Yeah, EC went out of business, and those old EC comics are really collectible now because so many of them got destroyed. And they're worth big money every issue.
So, do you want me to read you off all the rules?
I know some of
There
them.
was 18 of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, that's fine. I mean, I know.
I kind of cut them down so it's not like the whole thing. It's an abbreviated part of each one of them.
Yeah, sure, go ahead if you want. I know one of them like crime.
No sympathy for criminals.
Yes.
No promotion of or any distrust in law and agencies. No excessive violence, torture, knives, gunplay. Let's see.
I heard you could have one punch. I'd heard you could have one punch in a comic, so they would like save that punch for the good guy punching the bad guy at the end, but you're only allowed one punch. I heard the word crime couldn't be larger than any other words in the title.
Yeah, well, okay, so the first rules, this is like when they revamped them in the 70s. This is what the rules ended up being. At first, it had sections about religion and I mean it was pages. Right now this is just the 18 that was revamped in the 70s, and I'll tell you why they revamped it then. Criminals shouldn't be glamorized. Law agencies, governments shouldn't be disrespected. No horror, bloodshed, gore, lust, sadism, or however you say that. Horror or terror should not be in the title. No lewd, unsavory, or gruesome illustrations. No evil illustrations. Let's see. Good shall always triumph over evil. Let's see. No crime depicting in sordid or unpleasant. No Walking Dead. No torture. No vampires. No ghouls. Wait a second. No cannibals. And here's one I know you would hate. No werewolves. Which was crazy because one of the artists, his name was like Art Wolfman.
Yeah.
And he had to change his name because he wasn't even allowed to put his own name on the comic book.
Go back to the Walking Dead thing. Of course, that's zombies is what we're talking about. But whenever you're kicking that cord again, which makes that whole thing move. But anyway, we're not having an earthquake here.
Yeah,
Rob's just got big feet. But anyway, so whenever Robert Kirkman made the comic Walking Dead, instead of just that's where he got the name Walking Dead, was all the way back from the Comic Code Authority, when you couldn't show Walking Dead, and now he could show Walking Dead and actually name his comic Walking Dead.
Right.
But it was an odd term because nobody used the term Walking Dead. We used the term zombie back in the day. And when you said zombie, people knew what you were talking about.
Right.
So he actually plucked that name from the old Comic Code Authority.
Just a few more. Females should be drawn realistically. No exaggerated body parts. No suggested posture. No nudity in the ads of comic books or in the magazines. Clothing should not be offensive. In good taste. No nudity. No illicit sex. No. We're going to say SA because you're not supposed to say rape on video. So I just said it anyway. No sexual.
Well, they're going to demonetize us.
yeah,
We're,
right.
we're not monetized. So.
No sexual perversion, no evil or suggestion or
Is there anything else you're not supposed
seduction
to?
or.
Is there any other words you're not supposed to say?
But anyway, yeah,
You used to not be able to say COVID on YouTube.
you can't say murder either.
Can you say murder?
Yeah, he unalived him is what they say.
Yeah.
now.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. I'm against censorship in any form, and so what happened is the comic book industry policed themselves so the government wouldn't be more involved. But you run into, like, let's say, and I'm going to segue this over to like the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion things that they're doing now. So that wasn't forced on any company, but a lot of banks would not lend you money if you didn't have a DEI program in your movie studio or what have you. And that's why we got so much woke in the last 10 years. Now it's starting to fade away because if you promote somebody or give somebody accolades based on anything other than merit, if you do that based on race, and that's just another form of racism. It goes all the way back to affirmative action, which they'd done away with in the 70s. So as human beings, everything should be based on merit and not sex, whether you're a man or woman, or regardless of the color of your skin. And so we're kind of moving beyond that stuff. But the whole Comic Code Authority, yeah, I mean, it was just another form of censorship. I remember reading, I was a big Conan fan.
Okay.
And so when I would read Conan back in the 80s during the Comic Code Authority, all the blood was black.
Right.
So he would slice somebody,
And black ooze
and you'd
was
see
flying.
black ooze come out of him, because if that was red, well, then that might have made me, I don't know, a serial killer or something.
So the government knew they couldn't infringe on their First Amendment rights. They couldn't infringe on the freedom of press. But what they could do is control the mail. And Ben's, they were selling 1 billion copies of issues, and they were all in New York and trying to get them across the country and around the world. They said, well, we don't have to mail anything that's lewd or obscene or things like that. So they kind of would actually say, look, we've still got control of you, whether we can't force it on you by law, but legally we can also put your sales in the tank.
Right, and I mean, that's what they did.
And like you said, that the movie companies had to have that thing.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't comic book stores in the day.
Yeah.
You were sold in drugstores. You were sold in
Grocery stores.
Grocery stores, newsstands.
Yeah.
And if you were caught selling a comic book that didn't have the Comic Code seal on it,
Yeah.
you got fined $500. And in the 50s, $500 was a lot of freaking
Well,
money.
I mean, and that's one thing I like about Stan Lee is Stan Lee's writing is real hit and miss. If Stan Lee enjoyed writing something, it was good. If he didn't enjoy writing stuff, you could tell. And but he come up with a lot of original characters, obviously. But he was one of the publishers that pushed Marvel. They actually printed some comics, and they chose not to put the comic code on
I
there.
can tell you the first one.
The Iron Man.
No.
Oh,
Go ahead.
But I know they did it in Iron. They did it in Iron Man because they made Tony Stark an alcoholic, and he was having to deal with that. You couldn't have alcoholism or show a hero struggle with alcoholism.
Right.
And so Stan Lee decided to do that, and it was a risk. And because it was it's so well. People wanted that issue.
Right.
Because it dealt with something that they typically didn't do. And a lot of people have to deal with addiction, and in particular alcoholism, I'll say, as I take a drink.
I mean,
but I mean the thing is that was good on Stan. What was the first one?
So You're right. Marvel really went out of their way to connect with their audience and the issues that was going on at the time, and drugs was part of them. So I found out this story because I'm a DC fan.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of DC documentaries. Well, I seen this thing where Neil Adams, the writer of the Green Arrow and Green Lantern
Yeah, I met him. He's awesome.
comic book, really?
Yeah, he's dead now, but yeah.
Freak. Anyway, so they had came up with the story where Speedy was sitting there with the whole drug paraphernalia in front of him, and they wanted to put that out. And he took it to his editor, and the editor was like, you're crazy. We can't do this. So they put it on the shelf. So in his frustration, a week or two passed, he goes to see his friend, let's see, I want to get his first name right. It's like John Ramada Sr. now.
Yeah, yeah.
So John Ramada was working on, he showed Adams, he said, here, look at this. And it was, now if y'all don't know John Ramada, he like created the Punisher.
Is it Ramada or Ramita?
It might be Ramita. I don't know. Potato, Ramita, Ramada.
Mark Miller or Mark Millar?
He created the Punisher, the Wolverine,
Yeah.
Luke Cage. I mean, this guy was like right up there with Stan. So anyway, he was working on an Amazing Spider-Man issue number 96. It was 96, wasn't it? Yeah. And in it, it showed this young man on the top of a building who had taken drugs. You could see all the little bubbles and stuff.
Yes.
And by taking those drugs, he fell off and was going to fall to his death. Well,
Yeah.
in the comic book at the time, the police was trying to hunt down Spider-Man. Spider-Man was considered the villain. But Spider-Man seen this kid fall
Yeah.
and swung in to catch him.
Yeah.
And
Good for Spider-Man.
yeah, good for Spider-Man. Being a hero, even though the police was going to catch
Right.
him, he took him down to the police and saved his life, and then had to take the hell off because they automatically wanted to draw guns and shoot him.
Yeah.
But so Adams asked Ramita,
Yeah.
how you say
Tomato,
it?
tomato.
He asked him. He's like, so how are you going to do this? Did you send this to the code authorities?
Yeah.
He said, oh, yeah, they denied it. And he's like, but you are still printing? He said, yeah. He said, I took it to Stan, and Stan said, yeah, just run it. Just leave the seal off the cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was the first Marvel issue that
Didn't have the comics
have
code
the
on it.
seal on it.
Yeah.
And it was because Stan was like, look, we need to tell this story.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
We just don't need the seal anymore.
Yeah.
So, or we don't need the seal. And so a few weeks passed, and he goes back to John. Adams goes to John and says, all right, what's happening? What's going on? Because he was expecting, somebody to drop the boot on him.
Yeah. A lot of backlash.
And he was like, nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. Nobody's saying a thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you serious? And so they went to the comic code authorities, and they decided to revamp. They got everybody together and was like, look, we're going to revamp. In 1971. And after that is when they released the Green Arrow, Green Lantern comic book. So that's how I found out about who was the first. And it was Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I hate to admit that because I'm not a Marvel fan, but good for you. So,
yeah. I mean, so what, okay, so now you go to the comic book store. Do they even have that on New Comics?
So Marvel,
I mean, I know people
totally
don't pay
done
attention
away
to it.
with it in
Yeah.
2001.
Okay.
They followed the new vamped rules until they were just like, look, we're done.
Yeah.
And then DC and another comic book company was hung into like 2010.
Yes.
So for the longest time, since 71, it was either on there or not on there. And nobody was really pressing it because the guys that was running it was actually past producers and artists from other comic book companies.
Yeah.
And so as the years have changed, political landscapes have changed, emotional people have changed,
Yeah.
so has the comic book code. And so eventually they were just like, okay, well, we're done with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, in 2025, when we're filming this, when you go into a comic book store, it's adults.
Oh yeah.
for the most part.
Right.
I mean, there is a small amount of kids that read anything other than a screen.
I'm looking to see if any of your comic books on the wall has the
So I mean,
code symbol on it.
that's got the
Oh,
code symbol
yeah.
on it. So, but anyway, but I mean, the thing is that comics is kind of geared toward adults. To me, they should do it like the video games. The video games have a rating on it. So the video games have rating to where, okay, this is appropriate for a kid, or it may have a warning on there where, okay, this is okay for a teenager, and then it may have something on there where this is adult only. And so you could do comics that way too, and but ultimately kids don't have money. So as a parent, you're the one that polices your child. You're the one that makes sure what they're watching on TV. You're the one that makes sure what they're reading, if they read. Like I said, kids don't typically read anything anymore. And or if they go to the movies, what movies they watch or what video games they play. That's your responsibility to take that child and expose them to what you want to expose them to as a parent. And so, to me, as long as it's labeled there to help the parent, so the parent's like, okay, I want to pick up an Iron Man. Let's say I want to pick up an Iron Man comic for my child. That's good. But like if they went and Punisher Max, yeah, they probably wouldn't want to pick that up for their kid.
I mean, so you're saying it would be good to have that on there so the parent doesn't actually
A
have
rating.
to go through the trouble of actually reading or looking at the comic itself.
Yeah, because
So
I mean, I don't want to have to.
So in a way, you're going back to taking the responsibility of actually looking into something away from the parents.
Let's say now I take a granddaughter into a bookstore and she's going to pick out a book. I don't want to have to read that entire book before I give it to her.
Just like they
I want to be able to,
video
I want to be able
games.
to look at it and say, okay, that's appropriate for her. I'll let her read it. For instance, I just bought a manga. Can you believe it? I bought a manga for one of my granddaughters, Madeline, because she said she hadn't read any and she loves to draw, and she draws kind of in a manga style anyway.
Okay.
I asked her if she'd read one. She said no, so I ordered one on her. Now, I'm not going to. I ordered, it was like some magical girl riding a broom with a magical cat or something.
That's the worst.
But but what I did, I didn't buy it and read it.
Spirited
I
Away.
didn't buy it and read it and then
Tell me if
give
I'm
it to her. What I did was I bought it. It hadn't come in yet. But I bought it and then but I did a review on it to make sure it was appropriate for the age appropriate.
You looked at it.
Yeah, she's like 11.
Okay, so you did look at it.
No, I looked at the rating. I didn't read the book. But anyway, so there's a place for ratings. But at the same time, I'm not for censorship. Censorship is when you step over that boundary, when you say you can't say this, like you can't say this on YouTube.
But who creates the censorship? It's usually your political, religious, overzealous, controlling people that create.
And in the case of like YouTube,
that thinks or feels they know
which we're on now, it's their platform.
Right.
They can make any rules they want. And if they want to say, hey, you can't use that word, and if you do, we're going to demonetize you, they're well within their platform. They're totally within their rights to do that.
But see, then does that go against freedom of speech?
I just think I'm all for freedom of speech, but I think that like for instance, when we post these videos, I put on there not for kids.
Okay.
99.99% of what we talk about is okay for kids.
Well, because we're not kids, but
yeah, but I mean it's okay for children. It's not inappropriate. But on occasion, we may say or talk about something that might be inappropriate, so I just put on there, not for kids.
Well, I think the reason the Comic Book Code Authority finally took its last breath is because of the way the media was portrayed anyway. No longer was it sold in newsstands. You had comic book stores. Yeah. Like you said, most of the buyers was adults. So much digital stuff.
But I got news for you. The future of comics lies in the hands of children. Our generation is slowly disappearing. We've been comic book collectors.
I am immortal.
So I mean, but the thing is that you need to get them on. You need to get kid-appropriate comics on spinner racks, in grocery stores, in drug stores, in your super department stores like Walmart and Target. Kids need to have access to them. They need to be kid level, kid friendly, in their form, and that's the only way that the comic book industry is going to
But by doing
survive.
that, then you're going to have to go back to having a code.
You can have both. You don't have to have
I know
only kid
I know you're gonna be
appropriate
able
or
to
adult
have
appropriate.
a comic book that has Bluey in it, which
Yeah.
probably is owned
Yeah.
by Disney, right?
I hope they own everything anymore.
So you can have that book on the bookshelves for kids.
Yeah.
And you know it's going to be age appropriate. But then they're creating comic books because they also own Marvel as well
Yeah.
that are more adult.
For instance, like a lot of things on Disney Channel are geared toward kids, but the Daredevil Born Again and they also have the Netflix shows on there too. The Daredevil is definitely adult oriented.
Right.
So you can have both. You can have both. So, in my opinion.
Okay.
All right. You done?
I think I'm done.
All right, man. I think I'm done too. And I appreciate you watching. And please hit that like button and subscribe and the notification bell so you'll be aware when we come out with a new video. And I appreciate you hanging on and watching to the end of the video. And stay geeky, my friends. So we are done.
We're done.
We are done.
Like the comic book code authority.
Yes,
we
right.
are done.
So I was going and I've been reading my old comics. I had like the first appearance of Galactus.
Nice.
And didn't even know it.
And it's got the comic book code
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, so I put the, we're done! Hey, we're done!
Yeah, we forgot to say that, didn't
Yeah, no, we said it.
we? We didn't say it loud enough for her to hear.
For her to hear. But anyway, yeah, that was kind of a nice little treat. I didn't even know I had that.
And you know what? His appearance hasn't really changed a whole lot.
No, it hasn't.
Nice.
I'll probably do a Fantastic Four video